Welcome back to the Rich Eisen Show.
Patriots, 2nd and 5. Fitzpatrick under pressure. He got hit from behind. The loose ball is picked up by the Patriots.
Chris Long with a sack force fumble of Ryan Fitzpatrick in the final throes of a Week 12 Patriots win against the Jets. The last time, by the way, the New England Patriots have trailed in a football game was that game where they came back and then Chris Long sealed the deal. And his dad, Pro Football Hall of Famer and member of the Super Bowl 51 pregame and Fox NFL Sunday Pro Football Hall of Famer Howie Long here on the set.
Good to be here.
Good to have you here. What a week for you. I mean, you've played in the game, you've broadcast these games. Now your son is playing in this football game.
Well, you know, he kind of took the Lewis and Clark route to get here, and I know he's made a number of great friends with the Rams, and that kind of a bond. Anytime you're teammates with people, particularly that defensive front group, they were a very close-knit group. And Todd Gurley was, you know, I saw that piece just a second ago when he was on with you. I know all those guys are pulling for him, but when you play 8 years and you're averaging 4.5 wins a year, as a dad, you feel compelled to, you know, it'll be better next week. It'll be better next year, you know, and the weeks turn into months, the months turn into years, and the next thing you know, 8 years go by and you've never been in the playoffs and you've averaged 4.5 wins a year. So for him to have the opportunity in the offseason to kind of make a decision between, I think it was 4 or 5 teams, and then making the choice to go with New England, because at the end of the day, it always came back to the same question: why are you playing? And it was all about winning. And I said, well, you know,
there's one place that they win a lot.
You know, and listen, he loved his trip to Atlanta, loved Dan Quinn. Brian Cox, a guy who I have a great deal of respect for. Chris really enjoyed his time down there and really was excited about what they're doing down there. It's just a question of where's the fit and taking a chance on New England, and they took a chance on him. And oddly enough, it was probably the place that gave him the least amount of definitive idea of what his role would be. So you're betting on yourself. I said, are you healthy? Mm-hmm. And he said, yeah. And I said the same thing to Sam Bradford before the season. I said, are you healthy? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, I'm betting on you. And I bet on Chris.
And now here he is in the Super Bowl. Interestingly enough, the Falcons are the team that he's going to try and beat. And interestingly enough, the quarterback of that team is the guy who was chosen after him in the draft with the very next pick. It's amazing how these things work out, that the 2 and 3 overall picks of that draft are going to be and normally it's just like, well, sometimes it's quarterback versus quarterback, and those two never get on the field at the same time. This is a situation where Chris Long, your son, is going to try and get Matt Ryan down, and that could be the key to winning and losing the Super Bowl for the teammates.
Well, I think when you're dealing with Atlanta, it's, you know, you've got 10 fingers and there's 11 holes in the dike. You know, they are, you look at them on film, and to use a NASCAR analogy, you know, drivers are trying to dial in their car, and the driver from the Atlanta Falcons pulled into the pit and said, don't touch the car. The car is perfect. You know, Coleman, Freeman, Sanu, Gabriel, Julio Jones. When you always want to put your number one most intimidating guy off the bus first. For the Atlanta Falcons, it's their wide receiver, Julio Jones, who's really, really a special player. Their 2 running backs are unique, both as runners and receivers. Coleman runs routes like a wide receiver because of his background. Freeman is dynamic in space, getting a check down route or on a swing pass or on a screen. Matt Ryan is special. Matt Ryan was special when he was at Boston College. You think back to then, Matt Ryan was a guy that, you know, took the BC Eagles to a top 10 team and had no business doing it. Name the folks that Matt Ryan was playing with at Boston College.
I can't.
No, and he's a special guy. So when you're talking about dealing with the Atlanta Falcons, I'm not sure there's a comfort level, or you take away Matt Ryan, you take away Freeman, you take away Julio Jones. Sanu's had monster games. And I think because they're not a Julio-centric team now, They don't have to go to Julio every play. There are a lot of options, and Matt Ryan takes the ball where it needs to go.
Howie Long here on the Rich Eisen Show. So how does New England counter this? I mean, how do they slow down this offense just enough, and we're assuming Brady's going to get his points and come up with the W?
Well, I think in a perfect world, you play great red zone defense. Atlanta's going to move the football, I'm sure. And how much is the Bill Belichick, Matt Patricia kind of role in it? What's that worth?
Well, they have the number one scoring defense.
Yeah, is it worth 3 points? Is it worth 4 points? You know, I think like matter of fact, all of New England's Super Bowls have been close games, and Tom Brady has led them down the field for what turned out to be the game-winning drive 4 times, and has been the Super Bowl MVP 3 times. In a perfect world, the best way to deal with Atlanta is maybe the way Philadelphia did, where you limit their touches. You limit the number of series and opportunities they have to put up points. You keep them on the sideline. New England is a very unique offense. There are 3 different types of running backs. Their offensive line has had a resurgence since last year. It was a point of emphasis. Their wide receiving core is deep. They're multiple. They can beat you any number of ways, but to be methodical and control the clock and keep Matt Ryan on the sideline is probably the only way you're going to stop Atlanta.
A few more minutes here with Howie Long here on the Rich Eisen Show from Houston. Last year, the Lombardi Trophy was hoisted by a Pro Football Hall of Fame colleague of yours and John Elway for grocery shopping, as well as he did in Denver. Your colleague, formerly now of Fox, who could be your Pro Football Hall of Fame colleague on Saturday, finalist John Lynch gets the gig in San Francisco. Did you ever think about maybe wanting to put together a team and be a general manager, Howie?
You know, I had some conversations about that at a couple of points. For me, playing football, being an athlete, is a selfish endeavor. And it was one of the reasons why I went to the Pro Bowl my last year and retired. And one of the reasons why is that our son Chris was 8 years old at the time. And, I know him, but I don't really know him. I was so obsessed with what I did. It wasn't about yesterday, it was about today and tomorrow. I've got to get better. There's someone coming for me. I have to heavy lies the head that wears the crown, and you've got to be that guy every day, not just on Sunday. You got to be that guy on Wednesday in practice, Thursday in practice. You've got to prepare the injuries, the sacrifice. So it's a selfish endeavor. And when a lot of people say I'm going to quit and spend more time with my family, and they're at golf tournaments all the time. I can't remember the last golf tournament I was at. For me, it was all about family. And to have the opportunity to coach all 3 of our boys for 8 years in high school football and coach Little League baseball for 8 years, that was enough of a fulfillment for me. John is a unique guy. John's a special guy. He's, in my mind, a Hall of Famer, whether that's year 2, year 3, year 4. John Lynch is a Hall of Famer. He's a game changer. That defense was, of its generation, and that Tampa 2, and John Lynch was a big part of it. John's a smart guy. He's a well-prepared guy. He's a stamper guy like John Elway. People think, well, you got to deal with the salary cap. You got to negotiate contracts. No, there's a kid from MIT, 2 offices down from John Lynch, who does the salary cap. There's a guy that negotiates contracts. John's about evaluating talent, working hand in hand with what will probably be Kyle Shanahan. So I don't think John is reinventing the wheel, but John will be as committed a guy as you'll find.
So where are the Raiders going to go now? Because it looks like Vegas is not going to be an option. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know.
It looks like the money's gone. At least a large chunk of money that was supposed to be part of this plan is not going to happen. And word is the politicos in San Diego have knocked on the Raiders' door, say, why not come down here? Would you be fine with that?
I think anyone who ever played in Oakland, and I started my career in Oakland before moving to L.A., and the history, the fans, the passion of that Coliseum and that town and those fans and all the historical games that were played there, the great players that, in many ways defined that era of football, would love to see that team in Oakland. But to this point, I haven't seen a proposal that will allow them to do that. In order for this organization to be competitive in today's NFL, which means stadiums, which means non-shared revenue, which means luxury boxes, all the things that people don't factor in, they need it, whether it's in Oakland or Vegas or San Diego. I'm hopeful that it's Oakland, but I haven't seen anything yet that would indicate that that's an option.
I've got Howie Long here for a couple more minutes. I've got Dan Marino coming up in hour 3. Your filmography versus Dan's.
Oh, my God.
Your filmography versus Dan Marino's. Who wins acting-wise? Right here.
That's if that's where we're going and that's what we're banking on, we're in trouble. Two things. If I could sing, I'd drop about 40 pounds, throw some tight jeans on, and I wouldn't have had to hit anybody. And if I could act, I certainly wouldn't be here.
Okay, so I'll take that as a push.
And Dan, I'm sure feels that. Dan was, I played against some great quarterbacks in my era. Dan was one of them. Boy, he was like a ball machine.
Just came out, you couldn't get to him, right?
No,
Fastest
the ball
release?
was out. I could run by somebody, literally just run by them as if it were a 40-yard dash at the combine.
Yes.
And ball's gone. Dan was great.
Fastest release.
You have a Broken Arrow Travolta story?
Now, Broken Arrow, let me tell you something. I got a residual check from Broken Arrow the other day. It was like $430.
No way.
That's sneaker money. That's sneaker money.
That's amazing.
You know?
430. I got one from CSI Miami the other day. It was 15 cents.
Hey, look, my wife didn't know. My wife didn't know. It's great, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
My wife didn't know I got paid in training camp till year 7, and she still doesn't know about the residual check.
Uh-oh. Now it's out there now. Where are you watching the game? Because I know obviously you're going to have halftime responsibilities.
I'm going to watch the opening, the national anthem, the kickoff, and that on the field. But then I want to get back in the green room and get in a corner and
be there.
Kind of laser the TV with my eyes.
Okay.
And try to. I'm going to try to enjoy it as much as I can. Try to imagine your kids doing something like this.
I can't.
And he's such a month after the Super Bowl, he'll be climbing Kilimanjaro to draw attention to the waterboys.org.
Yep.
And they're going to build their 16th well in East Africa. He is. Football doesn't define him. He's a great man. As a parent, you teach and you teach and you teach, and then inevitably, if you're lucky, your son ends up teaching you. And I'm inspired by him.
Well, have a great broadcast. Have a great day with you and your wife and your family watching Chris in the big game. Thanks for stopping by.
As always, love it.
Always, same here. Thank you. That's Howie Long. Check him out on Fox on Sunday. And when we come back in 60 ticks of the clock, the man who's calling Super Bowl 51, Joe Buck will be here. And the great Joe Buck will be here, and we will ask him some of the Rich Eisen Show Super Bowl prop bets that he has in the hand that he's using a pen on the Rich Eisen Show sign-in board. Back in a minute with Joe Buck.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.